So I thought it would be funny to watch this guy. You know, I'm always trying to give a fair shake to the people I disagree with. And I tend to disagree with this gentleman on a fair number of issues. But he does, have a very good, high quality camera, and I have respect for his sort of aesthetic. Like, really, I don't know if he has like an artist working with him setting up these shots, but like I do like it's like a tetrahedron composition. You have these 4 points, and he's sort of like the axis of the tetrahedron. It's just a great shot. He gets so dressed up for these things. It's like really cute. So this man's name is Jordan B. Peterson. Jordan B. Peterson. Here is a video from today, September 5th, and it's an open letter to the CEO of Twitter.
Message to Parag Agrawal, CEO of Twitter. Dear Mr. Agrawal, I wrote this when it was literally 2 a.m. during my recent visit to beautiful Samos, Greece, where I was on business attending to my efforts on the educational front. I woke up suddenly from my slumber.
That's really vague, man. Why do you have to be so vague about what you're doing? I was on business attending
to my efforts.
Attending to my efforts? Oh yeah, so I guess I should explain. I don't know all the details, but like, as far as I understand, he misgendered Elliot Page. Twitter said, you need to delete that tweet. You know, we have these policies against misgendering people. And then he made this whole video being like, this is like Nazi Germany, and my freedom is being taken away, and I don't even know what rule I broke. And he said a lot of really messed up stuff. As far as I understand, in the last few days, Jordan B. Peterson did get back on Twitter, maybe like a week ago, and he deleted that tweet. They made him delete that tweet, so he deleted it, but then to be a little petulant person, he then posted a screenshot of the tweet as like his pinned tweet. Again, I could be getting this wrong. I haven't like done a deep dive. I'm just giving you my impression of what happened. You can't just screenshot a fucking offending tweet that breaks the terms of service and then like they still judge it like they would a tweet. It doesn't matter if it's in a photo or in a tweet. So then that tweet, I think, got deleted. I don't know. Should we take a look at his fucking Twitter his pinned tweet violates the Twitter rules. Like, I've never seen that before. Like, how stubborn. He's still dying on the same hill he was dying on in 2016 or 2015 or whatever, when he misrepresented Bill C-16. He's still dying on that same hill of, if I'm not allowed to misgender people on certain platforms, this is like a serious problem that needs fixing. And just the simple answer to that is like, you're focusing on the wrong problem. There are way bigger problems like that you're missing, and this is not you're making this up. Like the bar association of your country, and like still now it's been 5 years or 6 years, like no one's been fucking jailed for just misgendering someone. Obviously that's not what it did. Bill C-16 just added gender identity to the list of groups that like were considered for human rights legislation. So it's just like, oh, hey, by the way, being bigoted against, trans people or people on the basis of their gender identity, like that is a crime just like being like racist. He maybe shouldn't have represented it the way he did, but nuance doesn't get you hundreds of thousands of dollars. So
I woke up suddenly from my slumbers with you.
He woke up? So he's woke now?
I woke up suddenly from my slumbers with you and your company on my mind in my jet-lagged state, unable to drowse further, and so I sat there writing instead of sleeping, which the more cautious and sensible part of me wished devoutly I was able to do instead.
He's just openly admitting, like, I'm hyper-fixating on this Twitter issue and it's affecting my personal life.
A few weeks ago, the wise folks at Twitter deemed it necessary to suspend my access to that platform, despite the fact that I had several million followers.
No, it's because of the fact that you have several million followers. So the fact that you have so many followers makes it so when you break the terms of service, it's very clear.
Despite the fact that I had put in the years of time and effort necessary to gain such an extensive following. Despite the fact, as well, that I was a genuine force on Twitter, trending with a rather appalling and frightening degree of regularity.
So he's just openly admitting, like, I think I should have gotten special privilege because of how much I really stimulate conversation on Twitter.
In many ways, I'm your monster.
The king of personal responsibility, everybody. The king of personal responsibility. Actually, Twitter, I'm your monster. Oh man, what a baller.
Regularity. I'm your monster, sir. The reason for the suspension? It's not exactly clear, because very little is exactly clear, Mr. Agrawal.
Did you read the terms of service and specifically around misgendering? Because it's really very clear and it's right there.
With regard to your social media network, apart from the fact that you allow an awful lot of misbehavior, what with the appalling proliferation of anonymous and near demonic trolls and bots and professional manipulation of the public space by actors such as the Russian and Chinese governments, and the proclivity of your own people to censor only those voices they don't agree with.
Okay, but citation needed, and it sounds like he's saying like they don't censor enough, and obviously they don't do a good job. They do a bad job. Yeah, they censor stuff they shouldn't, and they don't censor stuff they should, sure, but he clearly agrees that they should be doing some things to regulate their platforms. So what does he think is the difference? I mean, he just thinks that they should agree with him, or?
The tweet that brought about my suspension was one directed, for better or worse, at the actress/actor Ellen.
Oh my God, he's still misgendering him. And he says for better or worse. Bro, you are pathetic, man. You really have nothing else going on. It's so pathetic. And I just want to say, because I'm a mental health professional, I have a master's in social work and I work in the field of mental health. I have never once heard a mental health professional or a psychologist or a psychiatrist, social worker, counselor, anyone ever mention Jordan Peterson. I'm not saying they never do, but I have never once heard it. So it's important for people to understand he's not well known for his contributions to the field of psychology. He really has nothing else going on.
I criticized, along with his or her physician, for...
Yeah, just like... You're the one abusing language, Jordan Peterson. You're the one making the way you talk way more difficult than it needs to be.
Publicly trumpeting and publicizing the decision to have her perfectly functional breasts removed.
Jesus Christ, bro. Perfectly functional? What is wrong with you? Why do you think it's okay to talk about someone's body? You don't fucking know this person. There's no need. Wow.
In the attempt to switch sexes, which decision...
Does he want the Twitter CEO to fucking make gender reassignment surgery illegal or something? No, he just wants to be able to say whatever he wants. But everyone else is like, no, that's actually crossing the line into bigotry, so you don't get to say that. And he's like, what? What's going on now? Am I being oppressed? Bro, just fucking read some of the literature. Listen to some of the people who disagree with you. But I also don't think it's wrong for a platform to have terms of service. Does he not believe, as the person he is, does he not believe a private company should have the freedom to enforce their own terms of service and has some control? And just if you ever find yourself thinking about a stranger as much as he's thinking about Elliot Page, you've ventured off track and you've made something into way more of a big deal than it needs to be just to give yourself some form of stimulation or entertainment. He looks really down.
Might be considering, in their juvenile confusion, walking down the same direly and irreversibly damaging road. I don't think...
As far as I understand the book, Irreversible Damage, that he's sort of covertly referencing there, has been debunked a lot. You can look into that. I mean, I don't feel like going into it. But.
I think for a moment that it was even the criticism per se that resulted in my ban, but my use of Ellen's original name, a practice which the exceptionally active, yet exceptionally tiny and noisy and endlessly troublesome
Just the sick irony of it is like people who are misgendering and dead naming someone are actually working harder mentally to do it.
But I don't know, do I? Because your idiot policies of arbitrary exclusion are unbelievably and appallingly ill-defined.
Okay, well, I didn't want to have to do this, but I'm pulling it up. Okay, so Twitter hateful conduct policy, rationale, violence. Oh, here it is. Okay. This is from the official Twitter website. Okay, I don't know if Jordan Peterson doesn't know how to research things. It says, we prohibit targeting others with repeated slurs, tropes, or other content that intends to dehumanize, degrade, or reinforce negative or harmful stereotypes about a protected category. This includes targeted misgendering or dead naming of transgender individuals. We also prohibit the dehumanization of a group. So he did targeted misgendering and dead naming of a trans person. So that's what he did. So like, does he not know how to read? Because that would honestly explain a lot. Did he ever even read the letter from the Canadian Bar Association about C16? So he thinks they're ill-defined. We literally just read them. They're extremely well-defined.
I'm not granted the opportunity to face my accuser or accusers. Is there just one? Are there many?
No, you just got to delete the tweet, dude. It's like, you don't get to talk to the CEO of Barnes & Noble if they, try to kick you out for like jerking off in the poetry aisle. You just have to leave.
Who are they exactly? Are they inside or outside of Twitter? Why have they been granted this decision-making power? And I continue not to know, even though I followed
He's bragging about not understanding things.
Even though I followed your equally ill-defined and parameterized appeal process with regard to this censorious and judgmental action, undertaken in the shadowy background of your equally shadowy company.
So it's definitely scripted, but part of me keeps thinking, is it not scripted? Because it sounds so rambly and like he's just coming up with more and more words to fill space. But I think that's how he writes.
But I know absolutely that you know personally of my suspension and that you have been questioned about that because I have been told by a very good and exceedingly influential friend of mine who spoke directly to you very recently that he asked you just exactly what in hell you were thinking when you banned me. And I also have heard that an equally or even more influential person with whom you have also recently had very public dealings, which did not turn out well for your company, has
Elon
raised
Musk.
exactly the same concerns. And I also know that your demented and presumptuous minions have their eagle eye on my account, or that a coterie of influential activists is monitoring my online behavior on Twitter.
Dude, you said yourself how big your following is on Twitter. You have 2.8 million followers on your Twitter, dude. Why are you surprised that people are following what you're doing on Twitter? And what is this like trying to just reference your powerful friends? Why won't you just learn what the terms of service are? Like, you're a YouTuber. Like, you're supposed to like bring up a source every now and then. Just look at the Twitter terms on video. I dare you.
Assiduously, despite
He just uses so many unnecessarily big words.
despite my banning.
No, it's not despite your banning. What does that mean? No, people are looking at your Twitter like sort of in part because of your banning. That brings attention to how you're sort of breaking the terms of service. So people are going to be like, oh, I wonder if he's going to do it again, which you did immediately when you came back to the service by screenshotting the tweet that broke the terms of service. Which, like, okay, you're dying on that hill. Fine, you have the right. But don't complain when Twitter does their thing.
I needed to do some house cleaning on my account in relationship to some other tweets I had posted many months ago. A relatively minor matter, but one that became a somewhat pressing practical necessity. Afterward, I reposted a screenshot of the page tweet stating that I was obliged to do so as I had given my word that I would not delete it.
Oh man, that's actually kind of funny. It actually seems like he's been just totally fooled and like he's really not even in control of what he's doing. He's saying he was obliged to literally break the Twitter TOS again when he rejoined Twitter by posting a screenshot of the tweet that broke TOS. But in fact, I understand if he feels he was obliged, but like he wasn't obliged. Like if he tells people I won't delete that tweet, like I'm big about, you know, keeping to your word and stuff, but sometimes changing your mind is actually the healthier thing to do. And in terms of obligation, yes, your word bonds you with obligation, but so does the terms of service. And in fact, you were obliged not to do the thing you did. That would be more of an obligation, I would say.
Despite my suspension and the attempt at public shaming that suspension hypothetically constituted, and...
Bro, just speak more normal. You don't have to be like what that hypothetically constituted. Just say what it meant.
Bingo! Within hours, I was banned again. So...
It's not really worth talking about someone like Jordan B. Peterson without focusing on why he's so popular. But that's not the whole story. That's just the beginning. You know, he's very popular. He speaks to a lot of people's like needs. But I think he abuses the trust that people put in him, and I don't think he's worth the respect that people give him. I think it's mostly presentation, and I think he's a charlatan. I really do think he's a charlatan. I think all the big words and the fancy aesthetic. His latest Twitter activity has been, honestly, I would call it cyberbullying. He called that overweight model not beautiful, and I was so shocked. Yes. And I can tell you this, and this is an important point. Like, people who respect Jordan Peterson, most of them do not like seeing him do stuff like that. Obviously, fat people can be hot. And Jordan Peterson, like, we don't need to know if you don't find fat people hot. Like, that's... Like, do your thing, man. But aren't you married? Like, we don't need to know. Like, we don't want to know. And so his fans, he hurts them more than, well, I don't know. He hurts a lot of people. But.
Your staff can act pretty damn fast when it comes to registering and reacting to my hypothetical misbehavior, but are pretty darn slow when it comes to, say, responding in any manner whatsoever to the appeal I submitted, objecting to the ban, or at least raising questions about its rationale.
Dude, just tell us when you submitted the appeal and when they responded. We don't need all the words and the conjecture. If you had a good argument, you would just give the facts.
As your former security lead has just fortuitously pointed out in an interview in Time magazine, which is not exactly a bastion of the conservative or even...
Dude, you can't use words like fortuitously and bastion all the time, man. Like, I don't know how to... I don't even think he's trying to be pretentious. I think this is how he is. Because you couldn't, like, I don't know, you couldn't do that, like, on purpose. Like, it's too much work.
In classic liberal thought that you seem to oppose so randomly, arbitrarily, casually, high-handedly.
Bro, we don't need all the adverbs, bro.
And inappropriately. And then we must discuss the issue of Donald Trump.
we must discuss the Donald Trump in the room.
He capitalized somewhat dangerously on the resentment festering among the working class, who were so carelessly and foolishly and arrogantly abandoned.
Bro, you don't need so many adverbs.
By their former political representatives on the Democratic side under Hillary Clinton, who richly deserved, in consequence, the moral drubbing she received at Trump's hands.
Imagine the CEO of Twitter just watching this being like, oh, yes, I'm so glad. Thank you for the message, doctor. Are you still technically a doctor, even though you're not? Oh, yeah, doctor. Dr. Peterson, yes, thank you very much. This is very important. Thank you for the message.
I think that appealing to that resentment, instead of putting forth a positive...
Yo, she got drubbed, I got to admit. She did get drubbed. She won the popular vote.
Risked increasing the sense that the fundamental institutions of America, your great country, have now been rendered permanently untrustworthy, instead of simply in need of some reparative vision, some maintenance, and a modicum of necessary house cleaning. I believe this was a mistake because the radical leftists who believe that everything should be burned to the ground, Constitution, capitalism...
Yeah. It's like something like this. Like, he can't help but misrepresent his opponents. Like, fine, you're not left-wing, dude. Like, we get it. Like, it's not the most shocking thing ever. But, like, to say that your opponents just want to burn everything to the ground, like, yeah, I think we could rewrite the Constitution. I think we could improve upon our current economic system of capitalism. I think some traditions are worth changing. That's not the same as what he portrays, obviously, and it's so obvious to say, and you all already agree probably, but like, it really, that's the most offensive thing sometimes is like, man, you can't even like listen to your opponents for a second. We could stop. I could stop at any point. I could stop watching Jordan Peterson at any point. I'm not addicted. I could stop. I just don't want to stop.
Tradition, identity make the same claims. And they are the most dangerous opponents of the conservatives.
Yes, I did get another beer.
Hypothetically represented by the Republicans. And the last thing we need on the more traditional and cautious side.
So Jordan Peterson's thing is he tries to position himself as like a centrist. I think for intellectual and ego reasons, he thinks it's like makes him special. And also because he wants to grift both sides. But he takes a very different approach to both sides. Like, to the right wing, he's like disappointed. Like, conservatives, you've let me down. To the left wing, he's like disgusted and like horrified.
I also believe that Mr. Trump erred greatly, not least strategically, in his decision to push the narrative of stolen election. Even if he is correct, and I don't believe that he is technically, even though he was treated more despicably and unfairly and prejudicially by his political opponents than any U.S. leader in living memory.
It's just sad, man. It's honestly sad, dude. Have a backbone.
But Mr. Trump also accomplished some singular things, in my estimation.
Just say in my opinion, dude. Just say in my opinion, man. It doesn't make you stupid.
And got very little credit for it, where credit was clearly due. He warned the Europeans a few years ago in no uncertain terms that their virtue-signaling submission to the so-called environmentalist and utterly economically and practically deranged globalist utopians.
Those words are in a form of salad. Holy fuck.
Economically and practically deranged globalist utopians was going to bring them great grief.
He's just saying he doesn't like environmental regulations. That's all he's saying. He just has to be a smartass about it. He just doesn't like environmental regulations for reasons that do not add up in any legitimate sense. Like even Joe Rogan poked through his environmental opinions.
And thoroughly pilloried for offering this absolutely accurate and self-evident diagnosis, as he was for so much of what he did. And how much more correct could he been, as current events have clearly demonstrated?
Okay, I feel like that's the first time he's even approached a smile in the entire video. Does anyone disagree? Have we seen him smile before this? I mean, it's a tortured, twisted smile. Has he smiled before this, though?
And how much more correct could he been? How much more correct could he been, as current events have clearly...
Look at how he started the video. Can you imagine if you joined the stream and I was like...
President Obama received a Nobel Prize for doing nothing but winning a presidential election while being black.
Okay, that's a little bit absurd and sort of odd. I don't think it's good that Obama won the Nobel Peace Prize. I think it's absurd. I think he's a war criminal. However, I don't think he won it for being black. I think he won it for, I don't know, Obama Nobel Peace Prize. I assume they have some justification. 15 reasons why President Obama won the Nobel Peace Prize. I really just want one. One would be good. Okay, whatever, I don't care. He did not create peace. But it also didn't have to do with the color of his skin. So I don't know why Jordan is highlighting that.
And your company had the presumption to ban Mr. Trump.
The CEO's like, oh, you're still talking to me?
Despite the fact that he was the democratic choice of the majority of your populace.
Bro, that's like when you said that they banned you despite your popularity. It's like, it's not actually despite that. It's sort of because of that, but also because of the breaking of TOS. And I mean, Trump, I mean, come on. He was like really inciting. He was inciting a lot of like fairly serious shit. I don't love that Trump was banned, but I'm definitely not against it. He was funny, but I think it's good that he's banned. I mean, I just think it's good for people to have standards and companies to have standards. Did he say majority? Oh, he did say a majority of your populace. Yeah, he's just needlessly wrong.
Trump, despite the fact that he was the democratic choice of the majority of your populace, elected president, remember? And you haven't seen fit to lift that ban, despite the fact that there is truly no shortage of genuinely bad actors on your very poorly run platform.
I think he said despite too many times in this video.
And you banned and haven't lifted that ban on Trump, despite the fact that the ban, in all likelihood, given the centrality and sacrality of freedom of speech.
Sacrality is a word I have never heard before, not even once. It means what he's saying it means, but no one's ever heard anyone use it. Like, yeah, you can form a word through that back end way, but why would you?
Even if the idea that Trump was not good for the country in the main is accepted, many people have come to distrust Twitter and indeed the entire...
Dude, Twitter is watching this and they're like, yeah, no shit, dude, we know. Like, we know everyone hates us. Like, we don't fucking care. Like, we're just a company. Like, everyone's gonna hate us, obviously. We're just gonna, like, make money and, like, do what we do. Like, who fucking cares? Like, we don't need you to give us an update about our public opinion.
Because of the murky nature of your decisions to censor or allow. And that has allowed the paranoia and distrust, etc., that your company was hypothetically opposed to when Trump was hypothetically and uniquely, because why ban only him, generating, in my opinion...
Why ban only him? You just think they banned only him. What do you even say to that? Twitter is not good with dealing with harassment. They're very lenient, 100%. I submit reports sometimes and then they're like, actually, we didn't find anything wrong with that. And I'm like, but it was like hate speech in the most obvious way. There are so many legitimate criticisms of Twitter. Yeah, 100%. I mean, if he took responsibility for what he did and still criticized Twitter, it would be a very different video.
There is plenty of destructive conspiratorial thinking on the right, some of which has turned out to be all too justified.
He brings himself to the slightest criticism of the right and then he just totally negates it.
Back to my situation.
Back to my situation. Yeah, dude, it's about time, man.
I have, frankly, found it a relief to be banished from the Twitter world.
Yeah, because you're clearly addicted to social media, which, bro, I totally sympathize with, man. I know, it can be really addictive. It's nice that you've been able to take a break. You're clearly doing really well.
Nothing better to do than cause trouble by generating and promulgating the kind of derisive, contemptuous, LOL, LMFAO, bro, brah, dude comments that would get anyone.
So do you want Twitter to not let people type LMFAO? Like, you have a problem with how people respond to your behavior on Twitter.
Means that your platform represents a signal threat to the integrity of the discourse upon which the stability of your country and the mental health of its youth depend. As you have been directly warned by psychologists of great repute, such as Dr. Jonathan Haidt, as moderate and wise a learned person as you could hope to have.
Yeah, like, obviously Twitter has a negative impact on people's mental health. I don't know what you want them to do. Like, allowing you to be on Twitter and misgender and dead name people is going to help mental health, bro? Or no, we're just not talking about that anymore?
In consequence, I see very little evidence that you have the ability or the vision or the concern necessary to set the pathological den of serpents that you so apparently carelessly enable and govern straight.
Like, you're not supposed to put that many words in between set and straight when you use a phrase like set straight.
To set the pathological den of serpents that you so apparently carelessly enable and govern straight.
I would delete that sentence if I wrote that in a script. I would rephrase it.
And that is a very dire problem, set to get much worse as this fall's crucially important elections loom. A very small minority of truly misbehaving people pose a constant threat to the integrity of society, as they eternally have, and your electronically mediated communication system, with its ultimately and oh so morally but exceedingly carelessly flattened.
Bro, stop with the adverbs, man. Bro, I gotta hear that again.
And your electronically mediated communication system, with its ultimately and oh so morally but exceedingly carelessly flattened social hierarchy, where anyone whatsoever, even someone who bears no responsibility and who wishes to continue that way.
Maybe you should bear a little responsibility.
I wouldn't claim that my behavior on Twitter was perfect.
Well, then apologize for anything, dude.
Or indeed that any of my behavior is perfect. Twitter is a very difficult platform to use properly, and I have plenty to learn on that front.
No, it's not, dude. It's really not. Like, they're honestly really permissive.
But I tweeted several thousand times to many millions of people, and only a vanishingly small percentage of those missives caused the kind of concern that might properly culminate in disciplinary actions.
So you do admit that some of your tweets broke the terms of service. Yeah, like this argument, like only some of my tweets were violating TOS. It's like, yeah, that's why they didn't ban you. They asked you to delete the tweets.
As the power of your platform is immense, and I think the actions of your company are in the main making things in the world much worse than they need to be.
Oh yeah, they're gonna feel really bad about that, JP.
I am for that reason unwilling to quietly accede to your kind corrective, repetitive, insistent, and thoroughly public though it has been.
Oh yeah, did Twitter make it a little too public?
I would also, in closing, like to reiterate my irritation at the facts that, 1, I was banned from your platform without anything other than a generic and self-serving low-resolution explanation.
Just to be clear, the explanation is no targeted misgendering or dead naming of trans people. Just to be clear.
The Twitter troll underworld is warping and dementing the entire domain of public discourse. People who live in glass
Okay, you've said that like
houses,
5 times.
Mr. Agrawal. And you might ask yourself, by the way, who cast the first stone?
Well, what did we learn? What did we learn? I think we learned that he doesn't understand why people don't like the messages he sends and why they consider his messages actually very bad. And he's really not taken much effort to try to understand why people think it's worth censoring him. He doesn't talk about violence that's caused by the ideology he promotes. So, Simply Snap said, if JP was your client voicing these thoughts in the session, what advice would you give him? It's very hard to compare in the sense that he's clearly not trying to change his views here. So if someone is, obviously in therapy, sometimes people do go off and like explain something they're really passionate about, something like this. If he was a client saying this, it would be like, so what do you want? You know what I mean? I'd be like, so what do you want? Like, what is it that you want here? Is your goal to advocate for Twitter to change their shit? Like, is that a worthy cause? Is that something you're passionate? Fine. Okay, that's your campaign. Like, cool. How do you want to go about this so that you're happy and healthy in yourself? You know what I mean? It would be very different if a client was like, I'm obsessed with the fact that Twitter banned me and it bothers me, rather than I'm obsessed with it and I'm righteous and I'm correct and blah, blah, blah. It's like, are people starting a conversation in a way where they actually want to change their view? And the therapist's job would be to figure out, so like, what do you want to change here? It's so important to maintain healthy communities online or anywhere. And yeah, I mean, I'm very new to having a community myself, having any sort of audience, but I'm very glad to exert some censorship control on Twitch and on in any platform I exist on. Because at the end of the day, it's like not many people have the power to censor something. Like when someone comments something really bigoted on a YouTube video, only the content creator and YouTube have the right to censor that, and the person who posted the comment. So like it's just a matter of accepting responsibility and being like, oh, I want to create a space where people feel, good. So I let people criticize me. I let people say all kinds of stuff, but if it creates a bad vibe, it's like, fuck you, man. That's my right. So should we call it a day?